Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us today. My name is Emmanuel Davila. I serve as Director of Business Growth Services at the Southland Development Authority. And today we have a special presentation for you all around community development and financial institutions. And we're going to talk a little bit about what a community development financial institution is, how it can help your business. And we're also going to talk about a new grant opportunity that's available to businesses that started after January 1st of 2020. And we have special guests with us today from Allies for Community Business. They are the Community Development Financial Institution, and we have Yessenia de Leon and Tarsa, Washington, who've been generous with their time today to go ahead and tell us a bit more about what their organization does. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Yessenia and Tarsa so they could go ahead and give us a brief introduction.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Like you said, I'm Yessenia Diaz de Leon. I'm the Director of Community Lending here at A4CB. We will dive into all of our services, but super excited to be here with all of you today to sort of talk about how we can support entrepreneurs through capital coaching and connections. I've been at the organization for 7 years. I work with entrepreneurs at really every stage of their business in the states of Illinois and Indiana. So again, really grateful to be here, and hopefully we can share some valuable resources with you all. Tarsa.
And hello, everyone. My name is Tarsa Washington. I am the Manager of Business Coaching. I've been with Allies for Community Business for 4 years. Certainly have worked with business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs at various stages of their business development, and looking forward to hearing some of your questions later on.
Thank you, Tarsa. So for everybody on the call today, we do have an agenda prepared for you, and you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. You can drop them in the chat, and we'll have a bit of Q&A towards the end of the session. And we'll also provide contact information for everyone so that you can get in contact with us if you have additional questions that we need to take offline. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the Southland Development Authority and what our organization does. We also have a business needs survey, which you can complete. And that survey is super important because it does help inform and shape the programming that our team, the Business Growth Services team at SDA, is going to be putting on for 2024. So that survey is super important because it tells us what you need as a small business owner to be able to go ahead and develop that programming for you to be able to help you achieve your business goals. We'll also get into what is a community development financial institution very briefly and talk a bit about that. We'll touch base on how to prepare for a loan, and we'll chat about the B2B New Business Grant, which is offered currently up until January 11th for businesses that started operations after January 1st of 2020. And then we'll go ahead and turn it over to our friends at Allies for Community Business so that they can share more information about what they do and how they support entrepreneurs. So the Southland Development Authority, that's our organization, and we're one of the departments in that organization. SDA, as it's commonly known as, is a nonprofit business organization designed to grow the economy of the south suburbs of Chicagoland, which is known as the Southland collectively. The organization was launched in 2019 by a number of business, civic, and political leaders across the Southland. And what we aim to do is bring resources and the capacity necessary to help achieve transformative and inclusive economic growth for the region. And we do that by focusing on investment in industry, workforce, housing, and communities. So SDA is really a collective of different departments that serve in these different areas of expertise, right? So we have our department, which is Business Growth Services. We have housing. We have a municipal consulting unit that works with towns and villages throughout the Southland to help them with economic development initiatives. We have a land bank where that department takes unproductive properties or vacant land to be able to put them back into productive use. So there's a number of different things that we do here at the Southland Development Authority. This is the business needs survey that I was referring to. If everyone can take a moment just to take a quick picture of that QR code with your phone, and you can fill it out when you have a moment, That is going to ask you a series of questions that's going to help us determine what kind of programming you want to see for 2024. Do you want to see more information like this in a webinar format? Do you want to see in-person events? Do you want to see cohort training? What is it that you need from us to help you achieve your business growth goals? Now, moving on to our department. So we are the Business Growth Services team. We're a team of 4 relationship managers and myself that really work to get to know the businesses in the Southland. And whether you're a mom and pop, or you're a solopreneur, or you're a small team, all the way up to a larger scale operation, we work with you to figure out where exactly it is that we can support your business to get you to the next phase that you want to get to. And we do that through 4 different ways, right? We have what we call special programs. We have one-on-one tailored expert consulting. We have community partnerships, and we have business education and cohort programs. So what special programs refers to is when we respond to a need that we identify in the market, right? So it might be that we identify that a number of entrepreneurs are saying the same thing about a certain issue, and we decide, you know what, we need to put some resources behind creating a special program to address the specific need. We also might do it to respond to a shift in an industry and identify that, okay, there's a shift in the manufacturing industry, for example, and we need to go ahead and put some resources behind a program that can help people with that shift. Moving on to tailored expert consulting. This is an initiative that we have where later on this quarter, right, in a couple of months, you'll be able to apply for tailored expert consulting, meaning that you'll answer a series of questions and we'll be able to review everybody's submission case by case. And depending on what level of consulting you would need, or your level of investment that you're willing to put into that, and also the time you're willing to dedicate to that, we're able to look at those submissions case by case and decide, okay, this is a viable situation where we can put some resources behind that and match you with an expert consultant to help you with that need. So for example, maybe you're looking to restructure your business and you need help from an accountant. Maybe you need some help with your marketing. Maybe you're looking to purchase a property, a commercial property, and you need some real estate help or some legal help, right? So you're able to fill out that application. We're able to review it, see if we have the capacity and the resources available to match you with that expert, and then they can take it from there and really work side by side with you to meet that business goal. Community partnerships is where we're able to connect with the individual municipalities in the Southland, as well as chambers of commerce and other trade organizations or associations, to be able to make those connections and reach out to constituents and have in-person events, networking events, different things where we can gather community and be able to share resources with everyone. And then finally, business education and cohort programs. What you're seeing here is an example of our business education opportunities where we do webinars. We also do cohort training, where we develop a series of training over a certain amount of time, perhaps 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, where we take a group of people through a series of modules to teach them about a certain subject. It could be financial planning, it could be marketing, it could be workforce, employee management, all these different subjects, but it's a little bit more in depth. And we do that over a series of weeks where you're able to have time with other people that are like-minded individuals that want to learn about the same subject and be able to grow your network and also learn at the same time. So moving on to CDFI at a glance. So what is a CDFI? So a CDFI is it includes regulated institutions like community development banks, credit unions, but it also includes non-regulated institutions like loan and venture capital funds. And the idea is that a CDFI is really there to fill the gaps that are left by mainstream financial services, right? So really looking at empowering low income and underserved communities and communities that have been disinvested in or that have not been able to participate in the financial mainstream, right? So a CDFI is really there to provide access to capital to those that may have missed out on an opportunity to participate in the financial mainstream for whatever reason. Now, as you're looking to get access to capital, right? Everyone wants to know, how do I get access to capital, right? Whether it's a loan or a grant. The important thing to consider is why, how, and who. So even if you're approaching a CDFI for help, you want to be able to answer some of these questions. So you want to think about, why am I requesting a loan? Why do I want to apply for a grant? You also want to think about how that money is going to be used and what will be purchased or financed with that money. So I used to work in the banking industry, and I was a small business specialist, and I can't tell you how many times I would sit down with a client and they would tell me, hey, I want to get a loan. Okay, great. What are you going to use it for? And they couldn't tell me, right? And some of these folks were very successful business owners, but there was something about having that loan either as a backup or just kind of sitting there, that they really couldn't answer why they would want it sitting there, other than they just wanted to have that cushion or maybe just that extra money. So that's a specific need in itself, and you want to think about why you want the money. You also want to think about who, right? So who is on your team? You want to think about, who are you going to buy from? Who are your suppliers? You also want to think about, do you currently owe money to anybody else? That's important because as you start to look at different options, you're going to want to be able to tell the story about how you're going to spend the money, who is going to be managing your business operations, and who do you currently owe money to, or who are you going to be purchasing from? That's very important for you to be able to answer that, in the preliminary stages. Now, as you're gathering your documents to be able to go ahead and access capital, there's a couple of constants, right, that you want to think about. So you want to think about your business tax returns. 2 to 3 years of business tax returns, but also your personal tax returns may be requested, and that may include a statement of net worth, where you have to document how much your personal net worth is, and also your business plan. That's where those questions that we just saw on that previous slide come in, where you're able to answer those questions with your business plan. You're able to show the lender or maybe even an investor that you've got a solid plan, you can be profitable, and you've got a healthy financial future. Financial statements, something like a balance sheet, an income statement, bank statements, and probably the most important would be a cash flow statement, where you're able to show that at the end of every month, you have cash left over to be able to pay back your monthly payment on this particular loan you're trying to get. And then finally, legal documents. Legal documents can include patents, copyrights, maybe you have a contract with a vendor, and it's going to be some good money down the road, right? So you want to leverage that to be able to get yourself cash flow or working capital to be able to go ahead and complete that job. So this is not an exhaustive list of documents you may need, but these are some of the most common. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between a term loan, a line of credit, and also we'll talk about the difference between a loan and a grant. So getting into a term loan, this is probably one of the most common, and you probably have a term loan already, whether it's a car payment, a mortgage, something like that, right? So usually a term loan is going to be good for a one-time need. You can think of financing a vehicle, purchasing a property, purchasing a machine for your business. And usually you receive the funds in a lump sum, or they're paid to that vendor, right? So when you buy a car, you get a loan through Chase, it pays Toyota or whatever the dealer is, and you get your car. They usually come with fixed or adjustable rates, but typically fixed. And you typically have a fixed monthly payment, and terms can range with business loans anywhere from 12 to 84 months. Sometimes they're longer, but it really depends on what you're trying to do. Now, as far as a line of credit is generally good for working capital, inventory purchases. You only pay back what you withdraw plus interest, and they usually have an adjustable rate. You typically have a fixed monthly payment, even though you're only paying back what you pull from that line of credit. But a line of credit can really help you manage cash flow. And probably one of the best examples is in the construction industry, where you need to get started with the project, but you need to hire people, purchase materials, and all that good stuff. And then you're paid on a schedule, right? When work is completed. Having a healthy line of credit and a healthy cash flow can help you continue to do your job while you're able to do the work and not have to stop the work because you don't have money to pay your staff or purchase the materials and stuff like that. Now, when we talk about loan versus grant, so grant is the magical word, right? Everybody wants to get a grant, but we want to understand some key differences between loan and grant. So a loan, you got to pay it back. Usually they're offered by banks and other financial institutions. You're charged interest. You usually have to pay, or I'm sorry, you usually have to use it to pay for a specific need. And there's usually a credit check or some other form of underwriting required. Now, with a grant, you have less stringent application requirements. The grant can be restricted or unrestricted, meaning that if it's restricted, the grant is given to you so that you can use it for a specific need. Maybe you apply to a grant offered by a corporation like Microsoft or Verizon. They're giving you the grant to be able to use it for purchasing technology or something like that. Whereas unrestricted would mean that you're given a grant that you can use for your general operating purposes, right? You can use it to pay rent, pay your employees, whatever you need. Usually grants are awarded by governments, like we'll see with the B2B grant we'll talk about later, an organization or another institution without an expectation of payback. There are some, unique situations where if you don't use the grant for what it's intended for, you may have to pay that back, but those are very rare, and you wouldn't know ahead of time if that would be the case. And grants are very, very competitive. The reason they're competitive is because there's usually a certain amount of them made available at any given time from any grantor, right? So if a corporation like Comcast puts out a grant program to help small businesses, they only have so many resources to go around for that particular program. So they might only give out 500 grants, for X amount of thousands of dollars or whatever the case is. With government grants, very same, right? It's the same idea. And some organizations even offer fewer opportunities to apply for a grant. So I know all of us would love to get a grant, but keep in mind they are competitive and you want to be well positioned to apply for that opportunity. So speaking of grants, the B2B new business grant is available. And that grant is for businesses that started operations between January 1st of 2020 and December 31st of 2021. And you have to have had gross receipts of at least 25,000 and up to 20 million in 2021. Okay. Currently have operations in Illinois and have not received the business interruption grant, back to business grant prior to 2023, a restaurant revitalization fund grant, or a shuttered venue operators grant. And you must meet one of the following two criteria. The business or nonprofit is in a priority industry, and the priority industries are listed on their website. And the business is majority owned by an individual or individuals that prior to starting the business became unemployed and started receiving unemployment insurance during the pandemic, March 13, 2020 or later. So it's one of the following two criteria. For priority industries, those are going to be industries like arts and entertainment, hospitality, warehousing. So you'll be able to see that full list on their actual website. And all you need to do to apply is visit www.b2bnewbiz.com. And you have until January 11th to apply. So some of the required documents that you'll need a government issued photo ID. You'll need an official filing with the Secretary of State. If your business is organized in an LLC or corporation or something like that. And then you'll want to make sure that you have acceptable forms of proof of location, like a utility bill, mortgage, lease, something like that. And your unaltered filed tax returns, right, for 2021. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Yessenia and Tarsa from Allies for Community Business. They'll be able to share more specifically what their CDFI does to help entrepreneurs and share some of the amazing resources that they have available.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, can I get a cue that you all can see it? Yep. Awesome. So like Emmanuel said, we are a CDFI, which is Community Development Financial Institution, whose vision is that entrepreneurs from any background can start and grow businesses that create generational wealth for their families and their communities. Now, the way that we actually execute on this vision is through our day-to-day work in our mission, which is to provide the capital, coaching, and connections that entrepreneurs need to then grow these businesses and create jobs and wealth in their communities. Now, keep those three offerings in mind: the capital, coaching, and connections. Tarsa and I will dive into each of those separately throughout our presentation. To kind of highlight some of our work in the last couple of years, between 2020 and 2023, so end of last year, A4CB dispersed a total of $703 million in combination of both loans and lines of credit, but also grants. So we have frequently administered grant programming with partners, including the state of Illinois, the city of Chicago, and others. So previous B2B grants, for example. We've also coached 21,000 community businesses and funded over 31,000 businesses. Again, the funding portion is in combination of both our in-house lending, so lines of credit and term loans, but also the grants that we've administered throughout these couple of years with various partners. On the loan front, what we're offering are both term loans and lines of credit, anywhere between $500 as the minimum up to $100,000 to businesses that we consider either early, emerging, or established. So truly at any stage of your business, even if you're in the idea phase, haven't quite gotten started yet, or don't know where to get started, or if you're a more mature, established business, we're still able to offer that access to capital at what we consider to be very fair prices, especially given the current state of interest rates in our economy. So I'll get into what our interest rate and closing fees are in a sec as well. And like I had mentioned, we also frequently administer a grant program with partners that share in our mission to allow entrepreneurs to have access to this funding to put to good use in our communities. On the loan front, like I had mentioned, they do range between $500 and $100,000, both for our term loans and lines of credit. I know that Emmanuel was kind of describing some of the requirements or the documentation that most CDFIs or other financial institutions will ask for, which I think is excellent, practice or advice to have entrepreneurs have those documents readily available for lenders. I will say that we are a little different from most other financial institutions in many ways. One of those is that we do not consider credit scores at all. So your credit score will not come into play when making an evaluation of your loan application. We also do not put liens on personal assets, meaning we don't require collateral for any of our loans. That's not to say that we're not doing our due diligence. We certainly will still run credit and do a financial analysis. However, we're really trying to get at how well the entrepreneur has managed debt over the last 2 years. So kind of narrowing that time frame to 2 years, whereas your credit profile might have 10 plus years of history on it. You want to understand currently how well you're managing your debts and what cushion there is or what availability the entrepreneur has to make a monthly loan payment with us to ensure that we're not putting anyone in a worse off position, right, by overextending them or offering a loan that might be difficult to repay. Our application is, I'd say, very streamlined. You can complete it in, I'd say, between 10 and 15 minutes, which means that we are able to make a pre-approval to entrepreneurs on the spot for many of them if they meet certain credit criteria. In about a business day, we can get a decision. However, depending on the loan amount that they're requesting, we might need some more documentation Right now, our average time from start to finish, meaning from the time that we receive an application to the time that the entrepreneur has funds in their account, is about 10 business days, just to kind of set expectations on timelines there. Our interest rate is at 9% with a 2% closing fee, which again is very competitive in the current marketplace. And our standard term is at 36 months. We can adjust that if required. However, the standard is 36. I'd say the scenarios where we might consider any adjustment to that would be in cases like long-term asset acquisitions, perhaps. And our standard term for our smallest loans, which are credit builder loans, are 12-month terms, just to kind of keep that in mind as well. Emmanuel had already, described in his presentation the differences between term loans and lines of credit. What I'll highlight here is just the examples on the uses of these two different products. Like I had said, we offer both. And Emmanuel already covered, the key differences in terms of making fixed principal and interest payments for term loans, whereas a line of credit offers a little bit more flexibility in making interest-only payments. In our case, for the first year, that's how we've structured our lines of credit. Some examples of uses of these funds for term loans. They can be things, like I said, fixed asset or long-term asset acquisitions. Vehicle purchases. I've worked with a lot of truckers in the past looking to acquire that first asset. Lines of credit, as Emmanuel had also mentioned, for like construction industry clients, that tends to be very common. If you're looking to have some inventory, to have sort of a safety net of sorts for payroll, things like that, that's where lines of credit come in handy. I know I had mentioned that we don't use credit scores, but we do run personal credit, and we will report our loans to personal credit. So the three things that we're looking for on your credit history are ensuring that in the last 2 years, the entrepreneur has avoided a bankruptcy or charge-off greater than $500. This does also include collections. However, I would emphasize that collections do not include medical collections, so we don't hold medical collections against our clients. The second credit criteria is that in the last year, the entrepreneur has made on-time payments on their open trade lines and has at least one open trade line, and that they currently have at least 25% availability to draw on their revolving accounts. So essentially ensuring that they're not maxed out on credit cards, and their DTI does not exceed, their debt to income ratio does not exceed 40% of their personal income. So the way that we've structured our application allows clients to link their personal and business bank accounts via Plaid, so that we have like read-only access to the transactions in those bank accounts and be able to use our algorithm to spit out a pre-approval at whatever threshold the entrepreneur meets our debt to income ratio, again at 40%, and does not exceed 1.5 times the largest monthly payment the entrepreneur has paid on in the last year. So essentially, we're trying to make an offer comparable to what the client has been able to demonstrate they can repay. That's the sort of easiest or quickest way to get to an approval. However, we do obviously allow for clients to provide us, PDFs of their statements or additional financials, or if an entrepreneur perhaps doesn't meet one of these credit criteria, we can certainly still work with them. Just requires a little bit more due diligence and more documentation that we collect for underwriting, inclusive of tax returns for our larger loans. Now, for clients who I'd say have, I call it bruised credit. Let's say there are some collections perhaps, or some recent slow pays. We can certainly still work with our clients on getting them some access to capital, capped at $2,500. That's what we call our credit builder loan, and it's really meant to allow someone to to have some access to capital, but also establish a relationship with us as a lender, and then ideally leverage our business coaching, which Tarsa will talk about to ensure that they're in a better position in the future to come back to us for more funding. For those larger, so sorry, that was for up to 25. For the larger dollar requests, the credit criteria is exactly the same. The only difference is that we will collect our full list of required documents. So that list that Emmanuel had shared with your taxes and your profit and loss and your balance sheet and your bank statements, it'll be inclusive of all of your financial documents to ensure that you meet our thresholds on all three sets. And with that, I'll hand it over to Tarsa to describe our coaching.
Thank you, Yessenia. So as Yessenia started off talking about our 3 C's with the capital, coaching, and connections, I'll go deeper into the coaching and the connection services that Allies for Community Business offers. So within our coaching, we provide free coaching to aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners at any stage of their business. That can be in the form of one-on-one coaching or in group coaching. So with our one-on-one coaching, anyone is able to go onto our website and within our website, gain access to our scheduling page in order to schedule time to meet with a coach. Generally, our coaching sessions are for 30 minutes, and it provides an opportunity for that individual to select the date and time that best meets their availability in order to work with a coach. So it's very easy to be able to schedule time in which to talk to a coach for one-on-one coaching. For the group coaching, often we provide frequent business classes online. We'll run cohort programs. We'll do some group advising. And then we also run the neighborhood entrepreneurship lab that we call NEO. So let's dive a little bit deeper into our coaching, our one-on-one. Okay. So with that one-on-one coaching, how we categorize businesses is either in the early stage, emerging, or established businesses. And we categorize them in that particular format because we also have very specific business activities and milestones that we work with business owners in. And so to be able to give context for someone who is new to business coaching, interested in participating in business coaching, let's say, for instance, you are in early stage business, you're thinking about going into business, you're wondering, what would you be working with a business coach? What will you be talking about? And so to give some examples of those kind of business activities and milestones is being able to work with that aspiring entrepreneur to assess the business, establishing business and financial goals, to be able to get a good understanding of what that individual's idea is for the business, the mission, their idea for that business and business model. And so working with that particular person to get started, working to prepare to launch, and planning for stability. And so in each of these categories, there are very specific business activities and milestones that someone in the emerging business stage would want to be working on, as well as the established business stage. And so meeting with a coach would allow the business owner not only to work on their own business goals, but then also to be able to participate and complete very specific business milestones that will help launch and grow their business. Okay? And so that's some information about the one-on-one coaching. So now let's go into our next slide. And let's talk about the connection. So in addition to the capital and the coaching that's provided by Allies, we also have another C, which is connections. And there are a number of ways that we work with aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners as it relates to connections. And when we think of connections, we think of it in a number of ways. It could be connections as far as networking, partnerships, collaboration, or helping provide support and information to get the business owner to the next stage, to the next milestone. And here are three ways that we also service business owners. It's through kitchen space, licensing, and large contracts. So as it relates to kitchen space, so through the hatchery, we're able to provide an array of services, networking opportunities, support, and guidance for those business owners in the food and beverage industry. And so very specific activities and support and guidance for those who are focusing in that particular industry and who are in need of kitchen space and want to be able to work on a plan of action to be able to get them to that aspect. For licensing, of course, working with business owners to secure their business license and be able to operate legally within the city of Chicago. As it relates to larger contracts, often we're working with business owners who are interested in being certified and being able to get support and guidance and into how to become either women-owned certified or minority-owned certified. And so we can help them secure their contracts for their business in that aspect. So with the kitchen space and working with the hatchery, there are four specific areas in servicing that is provided. So within the kitchen space and within the hatchery is being able to grow food businesses at the hatchery. So if you're a business owner and your industry is food and beverage, with this service and with this connection, the hatchery is able to provide the 54 private kitchen spaces that are leasable by year. In addition to that, there are 5 shared kitchen spaces that can be rented by hour, as well as they have the capacity for not only storage, dry and cold storage, loading docks, and meeting spaces. So they have the kitchen space, the facilities and services to help those business owners in that industry. In addition to that is training with great chefs to impact the culinary industry. So being able to do a 12-week training program for any aspiring young chefs. So that's classroom time, that's support, that's guidance. And also after that internship with that classroom time is being able to provide that additional support for the paid internship at a Chicagoland restaurant. In addition to that, Allies also works to promote local products at the Garfield Park Neighborhood Market. And so that's a year-round indoor and outdoor market where we're showcasing Westside products across a variety of different industries, providing that preparation space, storage space inside the building, but also giving an opportunity to showcase and display those businesses and products to help get their brand out and also make connections with the customers as well as other business owners. And then there's the Prepare for Good Jobs with ICNC, and that is an adult training and job placement program that provides support for Westside employers to be able to have a connection where they can get staff for their businesses, and as well as staff also being able to provide business advice on hiring. So these are some examples of how connection goes through the kitchen space. Next, we have the licensing and procurement. So as it relates to licensing, of course, that can be such a difficult task trying to work or navigate through the city of Chicago. And so Allies is one of 8 Chicago business centers, and we have dedicated staff within our department that can help work with business owners to help provide some information about how do I go about getting a business license, where do I go to get one, what's the process, what documents are needed, and to be able to answer the question, do I even need a business license? And so working with the business coach to answer those questions, but not only that, to help point you in the right direction, guide you, and help you through the process to secure your business license. In addition to that, as we were talking about the certification, with the women-owned or minority-owned businesses is working with a dedicated business coach to help you navigate through that process. Um, it's a lengthy process. It's not, it may not be an easy one. There are a number of documents required, but being able to work with a coach to determine is it the right time to get certified, how would certification help elevate your business, and then how do you go through the process to fill out the documentation to be able to achieve the goal of being certified. So these are ways that Allies not only provides the capital, but the coaching and the connection through these channels. And so certainly being able to partner with us and follow with us, learning more about Allies for Community Business at a4cb.org. And within our website, you're going to our services area where you can learn more about coaching and capital, as well as the other services and programs that we have, and then also following us on social media. And at this time, we're ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Tarsa and Yessenia. That was amazing learning about all the great stuff that you all are doing over there. So I really appreciate you taking the time to go through that. There are a couple of questions. Someone asked for the QR code. So let me go ahead and share that really quickly. And hold on one second. And there was also another question about the inquiries. Is it a hard inquiry or soft inquiry into personal credit at Allies for Community Business?
Yep, great question. So it is a hard inquiry on personal credit. So all of our loans are personally guaranteed. We do require anyone with 20% or more ownership to sign as a guarantor on the business. And it will be reported to personal credit.
Thank you. And there was another question. Is Allies for Community Bank offering any grants?
So we as an organization don't have grants that we are offering. We always share opportunities as they arise on our grant landing page. So currently we're promoting the B2B grant, and there are a few others that are on our grant page. So I would encourage people to check out a4cb.org/grants for the most up-to-date information on grants that are available.
Thank you. And let me go through, make sure that we didn't miss anything.
There was one more, Manny. Can you get a
No,
business
I think it's the
loan?
sole prop.
Right, can you get
Yeah,
a
I see
business
that one.
loan? Mhm.
Yep. Yeah, we can certainly lend to entrepreneurs that are established as a sole proprietorship. The key with a sole prop is that we are required to fund to a business account. So we would need to demonstrate to our underwriters before final documents can be drawn up for closing that the entrepreneur has opened up a business account. And that can be a DBA account, but we do have to have a business account for funding purposes.
Thank you. There's another question. What if the business doesn't have a physical location and just operates online?
That's totally acceptable as well. Again, the documents are going to be in large part the same. So we require 3 months of business and 3 months of personal bank statements, and that can either be linked via Plaid or actual PDFs of bank statements, but we can certainly lend to home-based businesses of sorts.
So thank you. Another question is, do you lend to people who already have a loan for $30,000?
Who already have a loan with us, like in general, or with us? Or I'd say the broad answer is likely yes. So we can lend up to 100,000. If someone has existing debt, either with us or with another institution, then we factor in that monthly payment when we're doing our calculations on debt to income or debt service coverage ratio. So it really depends on the monthly payments on that $30,000 loan that we're referencing here, and whether or not that's with us or with another institution. The reason that I asked if it was with us or with another is just because we are capped at 100,000 in total, right? So clients can't have $200,000 loans with us per se. 100,000 is our total exposure to any one entrepreneur.
Got it. Thank you.
I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. Another question is, what don't you fund? So what does A4CB not fund?
That is also a great question. So we're pretty industry agnostic. There is a select few industries that we don't lend to, or businesses that we don't lend to, which are actually listed out on our site as well. We don't lend to, for example, speculative investments. So like real estate flipping type of business structures, that's not a eligible business purpose. We don't lend to anything related to cannabis. I'm blanking on the other ineligible business types because we are very much open. Like firearms is another. Usually the normal suspects that are ineligible are on our site. But other than that, we're very open to lots of different industries. Again, inclusive of sole props, at-home businesses, startup businesses, that sort of thing. But if anyone's curious, I would encourage them to check out the eligibility criteria. Again, it's pretty narrow. The list that we don't lend to is pretty narrow.
Thank you. Someone asked if they have a current pandemic assisted loan from A4CB and they're currently expanding and growing. How do they get assistance for a new project?
Yep, we can initiate an entirely new loan application. Like I said, the existing loan with A4CB, that monthly payment is going to be factored into our debt to income ratio calculations, and also factored into the maximum exposure that we have to any one entrepreneur. And I'd be happy to put my contact info in the chat if someone wants to have sort of a offline conversation about their existing loan with us or how we can pursue additional funds. But we certainly can offer additional funds to clients who currently have a loan with us.
Thank you. And for those asking if you'll be able to see the webinar again, you will. We'll make it available in the next few days for you to review again. Someone asked, do you use an SBSS score? And if so, what is the cutoff score?
You got me on that. Can you perhaps describe SBSS? And I might be totally blanking.
Yeah, no worries. We can move on to the next one in the meantime. What are the current interest rates?
Yep, so that's fixed at 9% for both term loan and line of credit.
Thank you. And then I think we have time for maybe 2 or 3 more. So what is the process for a startup business? I would assume this is referring to applying for credit with A4CB.
Yeah. So if it is for lending, the application for startup and existing is the exact same application. The key things to keep in mind for a startup business are, one, that we are capped at 12,500. So that is the maximum we're able to lend to a business that hasn't had at least 6 months of revenue. And the documentation that we'll be collecting to determine debt to income ratios would be personal bank statements. So we're going to be evaluating your personal income and personal debts to determine at which threshold we can extend a loan offer. I will say, just plug for our coaching there as well. Always encourage our startup businesses to also work with our business coaches to ensure that we're setting them up for success.
Awesome, thank you. And someone has a question about seasonal businesses. So they have a food truck that only runs from April till October. I would prove my business for the last 3 months. So how would a seasonal business differ, if they would differ at all, from someone that's operating year round?
I love that question. Love that question. So we normally do take 3 months. That is the standard in our underwriting, is to extract the last 90 days of history. However, especially in cases where we understand that there is seasonality, that's where our more flexible underwriting comes into play. So I have had entrepreneurs who have seasonality in their business. And actually during this time of year, I've had clients that do like snow removal, and when they've come to us like in the summer, they're like, well, there's no business in the summer because it's a snow removal business. So what we'll do is we'll get a like further back look on the business, right? So instead of collecting 3 months, we might collect 6 months or a full year of financials or of bank statements or transaction history to be able to run our DTI calculations on that longer period and have a better understanding of the business model. I will say that those loan requests above 25,000, because they also require tax returns to be submitted, that also allows us to have a more holistic view of how the business is operating year round.
Thank you. And for the SBSS loan, that would be referring to like the business's credit score as opposed to the personal credit score?
Ah, like Dun and Brad. Got it,
Yeah,
got it.
it's
So
similar to Dun and Bradstreet.
okay, so we don't consider that at all. It is exclusively the entrepreneur's personal credit. I will add that because we must demonstrate that our loans are for a business purpose, which as a CDFI we must do that. We do place a blanket UCC lien on the business. So all of our documentation will indicate that it's a business loan, inclusive of the closing documents and the lien that would be placed against the business with the Secretary of State to notify other potential lenders that the business has existing debt with us.
Perfect. And I think there's 2 more questions that we're able to get to. So the first one is, do we have a list of lenders that offer, more than 100,000? You could reach out to any of us on this call and we can have a deeper conversation about, your needs and see if there's a financial institution that better fits what you're looking to do. If you're looking to borrow more than 100 or 200,000 or something like that, if that's not something that, a CDFI would have capacity for, right, to lend. You may need a different loan product or something like that. As far as if a business is established and wants to access capital through a loan, but is not generating a lot of revenue, how do you fund, fashion, clothing boutiques, different things like that? I think working with one of our relationship managers at SDA, or working with a business coach at A4CB is the way to go, because you really want to walk through those milestones like Tarsa mentioned, to be able to figure out, is your business viable? How do you generate revenue? Do you want to go right into brick and mortar and have all the overhead associated with that, plus all the inventory that you have to purchase? Or do you maybe want to look for some alternatives like a pop-up shop where you can kind of test to see if people want to buy your product, or if you have some money saved, looking through your personal finances, do you want to invest all that into that business and go brick and mortar right away? Or do you want to think strategically about how you spend the resources you have? So I think that's a deeper conversation I have one-on-one with some of the folks like us on this call to really walk you through what that looks like. As far as, can a business that opened in 2021 that is still constructing but is not open yet, could that new business apply for the new B2B? So you would need to have your filed 2021 tax returns in order to apply. And that's referring to your business tax returns. So if you're a sole proprietor, that's going to be something that's called a 1040C, your profit and loss statement. And if you're an LLC or a corp, that's going to be a different tax return that you would provide. So you would need to have filed those taxes. And I think that would be it for now. We're coming close to time, but for those that are asking where you'll be able to see the webinar, we're going to send up a follow-up email in the next coming days with that information. And if you haven't taken a snapshot of this QR code, please do, so that you can fill out the survey when you have a moment. And I'll go ahead just briefly and scroll all the way down to Yessenia and Tarsa's information, so you can jot that down or take a screenshot, whatever you need to do to make sure that you have that information and reach out to them directly. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This is webinar number 1 for SDA. I'm not sure if A4CB, if you're already 20 webinars deep into your program yet or anything like that, but this is a great way to kick off 2024, because I know that the grant opportunity is coming up in 2 days. Some of us on this call may not qualify for that, but don't get discouraged, because you have resources like Allies for Community Business and many others doing great work that can try to walk you through getting access for your capital, getting access to capital for your business. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much, Yessenia and Tarsa, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a good one.